You ever been in a project meeting where everything just feels a little too good to be true? Where all the reports look fine, but your gut is screaming that something is seriously wrong? Well, let's get into it. Because today we're going to pull back the curtain on a massive flaw in how most projects are tracked. And I'll show you why your reports might be hiding a total catastrophe right in plain sight.
We've all heard this one, right? It's the comforting little phrase that gets tossed around as soon as a project starts to slip. It sounds so reasonable, so proactive. But honestly, it's probably the single most dangerous sentence in all of project management. It's basically a verbal smokescreen for a much, much bigger problem.
And while everyone's busy promising to catch up, the project itself is just slowly bleeding out. See, this isn't some sudden dramatic crisis. It's a quiet, creeping kind of failure, hidden behind all those nice-looking progress charts that are actually masking the real danger. And by the time the problem gets too big to ignore, it's almost always too late.
But what if you could just cut through all the vague promises and see the cold, hard math of where your project is really headed? What if your reporting could stop being a history lesson and start being your strategic playbook? Well, turns out there is a way.
Okay, so it all starts with this thing called the baseline. You know, that initial plan that everyone signs off on at the very beginning. For some reason, we treat this thing like it's carved in stone, like it's this sacred monument that we have to compare ourselves to, even when reality has gone completely off the rails.
I mean, this is the slide we've all stared at in 1,000 meetings. Over on the left, you've got the plan. It's beautiful. It's perfect. And on the right, well, that's reality, lagging just a little bit behind. The whole conversation then revolves around that tiny gap, the variance. But this creates a totally false sense of security because it's only looking backward.
And this gets us to the really uncomfortable truth. That baseline, the thing we are so obsessed with measuring against, it's an illusion. It's a ghost. It tells you where you are supposed to be sure, but it tells you absolutely nothing about what it's going to take to finish on time starting from right now. It is not the real plan.
So, if the baseline is just a history book, what should we be looking at instead? This is where we uncover what's called the real plan, and it's a huge shift in thinking. It's about taking your eyes off the rearview mirror and looking at the road ahead.
The real plan is actually a pretty simple idea, but it is profound. It completely ignores where you should have been and instead focuses on just one question. Based on the work we have left and the time we have left, what pace do we need to hit starting this very second to actually succeed? Think of it like a pressure gauge for your team's future.
And this right here, this slide, just lays it all out. The baseline is history. It's totally passive. The real plan, though, that's strategy. It's active. It completely changes the conversation from, man, why did we fall behind, to the way more important question. Okay, what do we have to do right now to win?
And you know, when you start thinking this way, something pretty incredible happens. You can suddenly see this invisible wall of work that's been building up right in front of your project. This is where we ditch the vague stories and start dealing with undeniable numbers.
Just look at the difference here. Traditional reporting says we're 5% behind. Okay, so what? That's trivia. The real plan says, look, your team's average pace is 100 units of work, but to finish on time, you need to be hitting a pace of 150 starting now. All of a sudden, don't worry it's under control becomes you have a 50% bow wave. That vague promise to accelerate gets replaced by a terrifyingly specific number.
Let's actually see what that looks like. Here's the team's proven pace. This is what they're actually delivering, day in and day out. And boom, here's the pace they now have to hit every single day just to meet the deadline. That gap isn't a small variance. It's a performance cliff. I mean, you gotta ask, is a 50% jump in productivity even possible?
That huge gap, that is what creates the bow wave. It's just like the wave that builds up in front of a boat. It's all the work you've deferred, all the stuff you were supposed to do, just piling up. And the longer you ignore it, the bigger and steeper that wave gets, until eventually it's big enough to swamp the entire project.
Now, this kind of honest, forward-looking measurement does a lot more than just make better reports. It fundamentally changes the role of the person who's reporting the numbers. They stop being a passive scorekeeper and become a crucial strategic partner to the team.
And the strategic shift that this creates is just massive. First, it creates real data-backed urgency. Second, it instantly kills all those misleading "we'll catch up" narratives. It forces everyone in the room to confront the actual reality of the situation. And that is what drives proactive, meaningful decisions instead of just wishful thinking.
And look, it's so important to remember this.
This is not about pointing fingers or blaming people. It's the opposite. It's about partnership. When you bring this kind of clarity to a team, you're not there to criticize them. You're there to arm them with the data they need to save the project and avoid disaster. That's how you build real, lasting trust.
So what's the ultimate outcome of all this? Well, when you provide this level of foresight, you enable your teams to make the tough calls long before their backs are against the wall. Reporting stops being about the past and actually becomes an act of leadership.
So instead of saying, we're a little behind, you can now walk in and say, okay, team, if absolutely nothing changes from this moment forward, we will be 84 days late. That is a completely different conversation, isn't it? It's specific, it's undeniable, and it forces a real decision today, not next month.
This kind of brutal honesty leads to a pretty clear outcome. Teams can no longer hide behind fuzzy language. The project is forced to make a real choice. You either change the scope, you add resources, or you adjust the deadline. Suddenly, you're not just a reporter watching the game from the sidelines, you're on the field, actively influencing the outcome and protecting the final delivery.
So really the key takeaway is this. We have to stop worshiping the baseline. We have to stop being obsessed with the past. The only plan that actually matters is the one that starts tomorrow morning. The real plan always lives in the future. Which leaves us with one last question to take back to your own teams. Take a really hard look at your progress reports, at the conversations you're having in your meetings. Are you just telling the story of where you've been? Or are you actually charting a realistic course for where you need to go? Is your reporting about history, or is it about strategy?